The prairie was wide, quiet, and endless, like a sea of yellow grass frozen in time. Wind moved across the land, whispering secrets that no one cared to hear. Most people in town said nothing lived out there but ghosts, and one lonely man who refused to give up. His name was Caleb Ward, and everyone called him the Lonely Rancher. Caleb's ranch sat far from town, a broken place with a fence half fallen and a barn leaning like it was tired. The windows were dusty, the door creaked like an old memory, and the porch steps were cracked from years of storms. Even the horses walked slowly, like they carried the same sadness Caleb did. Every morning, Caleb woke before the sun. He would sit on the edge of his bed, his boots on the floor, staring at the wall like the day was already too heavy. Then he would sigh, stand up, and start his chores. He fixed what he could and ignored what he couldn't. He fed the animals, even though they were the only ones who needed him. He moved like a man used to silence. The ranch had once been full of life. Caleb used to have people beside him, family, dreams, plans. But the past had taken too much. Loss had come like a wildfire and burned everything that mattered. After that, Caleb stopped believing that miracles were real. He stopped hoping. He stopped trying. Now, his life was just routine. Day in, day out. Nothing changed. Sometimes he would ride into town on his old horse, Dusty, just to buy supplies. People watched him, whispering behind their hands. They wondered why he still held on to that ranch. They wondered if he was strange, or dangerous, or simply broken. Some felt sorry for him. Others were afraid of the sadness in his eyes. Caleb did not care. He had learned to live without the world. He would buy flour, canned food, and medicine for the animals. He would nod politely to the store owner, and then leave before anyone could start a conversation. He did not want to talk. Words felt like sharp stones in his throat. One winter afternoon, Caleb returned from town. The sky hung low with gray clouds, heavy like rain that never fell. The wind was cold enough to bite. Caleb greeted his horse with a soft pat, then stopped when he noticed something strange. A single bird sat on the railing of his porch. A small, white dove. A dove in winter. A sign that did not make sense. It stared at him. He stared back. "Wrong place, little one," he muttered. His voice sounded rusty, like a door hinge that hadn't moved in years. But the dove didn't fly away. Instead, it pecked at the wood, as if waiting for something. Caleb shook his head and walked inside. He put away his things, lit the stove, and prepared dinner. Just beans. Always beans. The smell of smoke and old wood filled the room. Outside, the wind pushed against the walls like something trying to get in. Caleb froze when he heard a sound, small, sharp, and strange. A cry. Not an animal. Not the wind. A human cry. He set the pot down and moved to the window. The prairie was empty. Just grass and sky. But he felt it again. A sound full of fear. A sound that made his chest tighten, like someone pressing a fist against his heart. He grabbed his coat and stepped outside. The cold slapped his face. The dove was gone. The ranch was silent. Then, in the distance, he saw a figure, a shadow moving toward the ranch, stumbling, holding her arms around herself like she was carrying every pain in the world. She moved slowly, like her legs might break beneath her. Caleb's breath caught in his throat. He did not know who she was. He did not know why she was here. He did not know how much his life was about to change. He only knew one thing. The prairie was no longer empty. For the first time in years, something was coming toward him. Something unexpected. Something human. Something that would shake the silence of his deserted heart. Caleb stood still, staring at the figure growing closer and closer, his heart beat loud in his ears. The wind whispered again, but this time, it sounded different. Almost like hope. The next morning, the prairie felt restless, like the land itself knew change was coming. Caleb didn't understand why he kept thinking about the stranger from the night before. He never saw her reach his porch. Maybe the cold had played tricks on his mind. Maybe loneliness had finally started forming ghosts. To shake the thought away, he saddled Dusty and rode toward town for supplies. His coat was patched, his hat tilted low, and his heart heavy as always. The wind cut like ice, but he didn't flinch. He was used to bitter things. As Dusty's hooves clicked against the frozen road, the town came into view. The wooden signs creaked, the saloon doors banged, and smoke curled from chimneys like gray ribbons against the pale sky. Caleb tied his horse and headed for the general store. Inside, the stove crackled, and shelves were lined with canned peaches and flour sacks. He grabbed what he needed without looking at anyone. That was his rule. Stay invisible. Stay separate. But today, the quiet broke. Raised voices came from the back room. "I told you, I ain't talking her," a man growled. "You'll take her," a woman hissed. "Or I'll find someone who will. I can't feed another mouth. Especially, not her." The woman's voice cracked with something that wasn't regret. It was cold like broken glass. Caleb stopped mid-step. He didn't want to care. People's troubles weren't his anymore. But then he heard it. "Please, Mama, please don't do this. I'll work. I'll do anything. Just don't hand me over." The voice was the girl from the prairie, soft, shaking, familiar. Caleb turned toward the sound, his pulse quickening. His boots felt heavy as he moved closer, each step fighting the instinct to stay out of it. Through the half-open door, he saw her. The same girl he thought he'd imagined. She was younger than he expected, barely more than 20, cheeks hollow from hunger. She held her belly like a shield, pregnant, terrified. Her mother stood beside her, fingers gripping her arm like claws. The woman's eyes were sharp with desperation, pride, and something darker. "I can't afford her," the mother spat. "This is the only way she won't starve." "She ain't a horse," the man snapped, stepping back. "Find someone else." Caleb felt heat rise in his chest. He pushed the door open fully. Everyone turned. Silence hit like thunder. The mother's eyes narrowed. "What do you want, Ward?" Caleb swallowed. His throat felt tight. "Let the girl go." The woman laughed, loud and cruel. "You of all people shouldn't talk about letting go. You lost your whole family and still cling to that empty ranch like it's alive." The words hit him like a slap, but he didn't move. He looked at the girl instead. "You don't have to go with anyone you don't want to," he said quietly. "There are laws. There are places that can help." The mother scoffed. "Her? Who would help her? A girl carrying a baby she didn't ask for? No husband. No money. No home. You expect me to keep her? Feed her? For what?" The girl's lips trembled, eyes shining like storm clouds ready to break. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice breaking. "I never wanted to be a burden." Caleb's jaw tensed. He remembered those words. He had said them once to someone he loved. The man from earlier shook his head and fled the store. The mother turned to leave, dragging her daughter with her. Caleb stepped forward, blocking the exit. Not threatening. Just standing, like a wall that had finally learned it could protect instead of break. "You can't force her," Caleb said. "If she wants to go, she'll go on her own feet. Not because you push her." The mother's glare sharpened. "And who are you to say what happens to her? You! A nobody rancher with nothing but ghosts and dirt." Caleb didn't blink. "Someone who won't look away." Something shifted in the girl's expression, hope, but small and fragile. The store owner, Mr. Hale, cleared his throat. "She can stay here for the night. Sheriff will sort this out in the morning." He glared at the mother. "You try to sell your daughter again, and I'll make sure every law in this county knows your name." The mother let go, her hand falling like dead weight. She spat on the floor and stormed out, the door slamming like thunder. The girl collapsed into a chair, covering her eyes. Caleb stood still, unsure if stepping closer would be kindness or harm. "What's your name?" he finally asked. She lowered her hands, tears streaking her cheeks. "Mara," she whispered. "My name is Mara." Caleb nodded once. A simple gesture. I'm Caleb, he said. You're safe now. He didn't know if it was true, but for the first time in years he wanted it to be. Outside, the wind shifted direction. Even the prairie seemed to exhale. The sheriff arrived the next morning, and after a long conversation, after papers were signed and statements were taken, Mara was officially free to make her own choices. Her mother was taken into custody for attempted trafficking. The door of the sheriff's office closed behind that woman like an ending, sharp and echoing. Mara stepped out into the sunlight like someone who had forgotten what warmth felt like. Caleb stood near Dusty, waiting. He didn't know why he waited, he just did. His coat was pulled tight against the wind, hat low, eyes shadowed. He looked like a statue carved from loneliness. Mara approached slowly, her hands folded over her stomach. I don't know where to go, she said. Her voice was thin, as if every word cost her strength. Caleb looked down at her, at the fear and the hope mixing in her eyes like storm and sunlight fighting in the sky. You don't owe me anything, he said. But my ranch has room. It's quiet. Safe. You could stay there. Just until you decide what comes next. Mara hesitated. People will talk. They always do, Caleb answered. Talk never fed a soul. For a moment, Mara seemed ready to refuse. Pride, pain, confusion, they all lived in her eyes at once. But then a gust of cold wind cut through town, and she flinched, instinctively holding her belly. I'll go with you, she whispered. Caleb nodded, helped her onto Dusty, and led the horse out of town. He walked beside them, boots crunching on gravel, as if he didn't trust himself to ride with her. As if closeness might break something. The prairie stretched ahead, endless and wild. The sun was low, painting the sky orange and gold. Mara watched the land pass, her eyes drifting between the horizon and the back of Caleb's head. She wondered what lived inside that silence. Regret? Anger? Grief? Or maybe something as simple as fear. Caleb's mind was tangled. He had promised himself he would never let anyone close again. But the girl behind him, she was like a reminder of a world he had shut his door to. A world that needed help, needed kindness. A world he had abandoned. He didn't know if he could help her. He didn't know if helping her would break him again. All he knew was that she shouldn't be alone. The ranch appeared like a memory, broken fences, a leaning barn, windows fogged with dust. Mara stared, her breath catching. It looks tired, she said softly. So am I, Caleb replied. They reached the porch. Caleb helped her down, careful, almost afraid to touch her. Mara walked ahead, her boots tapping gently against the wooden boards. She pushed the door open and paused. The inside smelled like smoke and old wood. The furniture was simple. A rocking chair sat still in the corner like it had been waiting for someone to return. It's quiet, Mara said. Too quiet, Caleb admitted. He showed her a room. It wasn't much, just a bed, a dresser, and a small window overlooking the fields. Dust covered everything, but sunlight still spilled across the floor, making the room feel less like a prison and more like a beginning. I'll clean it, Mara said quickly, as if she needed to earn her place. You don't have to, Caleb replied. Rest first. Mara sat on the edge of the bed, hands trembling. She stared at her stomach like she was seeing it for the first time. I didn't ask for this, she whispered. Caleb leaned on the doorframe. Life doesn't ask, he said. It just happens. And we decide what to do next. Mara looked up, eyes shining. What did you decide? Caleb didn't answer at first. He looked out the window, at the empty fields. That I was done, he finally said. Done hoping. Done living for anything but chores and sleep. And now? Mara asked. Caleb didn't look at her. I don't know. Maybe this is just another chore. Mara's lips twitched. A weak smile. A chore that cries and kicks, she said. Caleb almost smiled back. Almost. Later, As the sun set behind the ranch, Caleb repaired a loose board on the porch. The hammer shook in his hand. Mara watched from the doorway, wrapped in a blanket. "You could have left me," she said quietly. Caleb kept working. "I've left enough things behind." The wind blew. The hammer paused midair. "Maybe I was waiting," he said, more to himself than to her. "For something. For someone. I don't know." Mara held her stomach and closed her eyes. "Maybe I was being led here," she breathed, voice small but full of something that sounded like faith. Caleb didn't know what to call the ache in his chest, but it felt like soil being turned, like something long buried might be ready to grow. The ranch creaked around them, tired but still standing. Like both of them. Mara awoke to birdsong, a thin and wobbling tune outside the window. For a moment she did not know where she was. The ceiling was wooden, cracked like the lines on an aged hand. The air smelled like clean smoke and morning bread. Then everything returned: the sheriff, her mother's arrest, Caleb's quiet offer. The ranch. She sat up slowly, one hand on her stomach. The baby kicked, as if reminding her she was not alone. Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them away. She had cried enough. Tears had never saved her before. She opened her door and paused. Voices drifted from the kitchen, not full words, just the sound of a man learning how to speak again after years of silence. "Caleb." Mara followed the sound. She found him by the stove, stirring a pot. His back was straight, shoulders broad, hat on the table beside him. He looked like someone built from the land itself, hard soil, wind, and broken hopes stitched into a man. "You can sit," he said without turning. "Got coffee. And some biscuits. They're not good, but they're warm." Mara sat. The chair creaked beneath her. "Thank you," she whispered. He poured her a cup of warm milk instead of coffee. Mara stared at it, surprised. "For the baby," he said, shrugging like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was more kindness than she'd seen in months. They ate in silence. Not the heavy silence of fear, but a gentler one, awkward, new, careful. Mara finally spoke. "You don't ask questions." Caleb looked up, eyes gray and tired. "Didn't think you'd want me to." "Maybe I need someone to," she said, voice barely above a breath. Caleb nodded once, slow. It was permission. Mara wrapped her hands around the cup. "My mother, she wasn't always cruel. But when my father left, something in her broke. We were hungry. Cold. She blamed me. Said if I had never been born, he would have stayed." Caleb listened, jaw tight, but he didn't interrupt. "When I told her I was pregnant," Mara continued, voice shaking, "she said I was repeating her mistakes. She said I deserved whatever happened next. She tried to get rid of me. More than once." Caleb set his spoon down. The metal hit the pot like thunder. Mara looked at him. "I ran. I worked for food. I slept in barns. I thought the world would be kinder than home. But it wasn't." She covered her face, shoulders trembling, not crying, just shaking like someone remembering a wound. Caleb stood, walked to the counter, and returned with a folded cloth. He placed it in front of her. She took it, confused. "For your hands?" he said. "They're shaking." Mara looked at her hands, at how weak they were, how tired. She nodded, pressing the cloth to her palms like a shield. She raised her head. "What about you?" Caleb froze. Mara's voice was soft. "What broke you?" Caleb leaned against the counter, eyes on the window. Outside, the prairie was endless and golden. "My wife," he said. "Her name was Clara. She was light in every room. Like sunshine. She got sick." His throat tightened. "There was nothing to be done. We tried doctors. We prayed. She still..." He stopped. The silence finished the sentence for him. Mara lowered her gaze. Grief filled the room like cold water rising. "And the child?" she asked gently. Caleb's hand clenched. "Our son. He followed her a year later. Fever took him. His voice was quiet but sharp, like glass under snow. After that, the ranch stopped being a home. Just a place to wait. Mara closed her eyes. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix anything, he said, but his voice wasn't angry. Just tired. No, Mara said. But it keeps us human. Caleb looked at her then. Really looked. Her face was thin, eyes hollow, but there was a spark, small, trembling, but alive. She was not broken. Not completely. Neither was he. Maybe broken people could still stand. A noise cracked the fragile quiet. A knock on the door. Slow. Heavy. Caleb stiffened. Mara's breath itched. Stay here, he said. He opened the door. A man stood on the porch. Tall, coat black as storm clouds, hat pulled low. You Caleb Ward? The stranger asked. Caleb nodded. The man handed him an envelope. A seal pressed in red wax. The stamp of a lawyer's office from another state. What's this? Caleb muttered. A matter of inheritance, the man said. His voice was like gravel. Someone left you something. Something big. Then he turned and walked away. Caleb stared at the envelope, hands shaking. Mara whispered, What does it mean? Caleb swallowed hard, staring at the red seal like it was alive. It means the past isn't done with me, he said. Storm clouds gathered by noon, thick and bruised like something angry in the sky. The prairie leaned under the wind, grass bowing like prayer. Inside the ranch, the air felt the same, tight, waiting, restless. Caleb had not opened the envelope. It sat on the kitchen table, a red wax seal staring at him like an eye. Mara watched him pace, boots thudding against the floorboards. Dusty whinnied outside, unsettled by the coming storm. You don't have to open it now, Mara said softly. Or ever. It's your choice. Caleb paused. His hands twitched like he wanted to grab the envelope and throw it in the fire. I thought I had buried my past, he muttered. Didn't expect it to reach out with a lawyer's stamp. Mara nodded. She understood. The past was a shadow. Even when you ran, it stretched. Lightning flashed, bright enough to show the dust in the air. Thunder followed, shaking the windows. Caleb finally sat. The wooden chair creaked. If I open it, he said, something changes. If I don't, maybe everything stays the same. Mara looked around the room, the peeling paint, the tired furniture, the broken man sitting like a ghost in his own home. Do you want everything to stay the same? Silence. Rain began to fall. Caleb picked up the envelope. He slid his thumb beneath the seal. The wax cracked, soft but sharp, like a heartbeat restarting. The letter inside was short. He read slowly, lips moving without sound. Mara watched the color fade from his face. What is it? She asked, dread curling in her stomach. Caleb set the paper down. His voice shook. My brother. He's dead. Been gone 6 months. No one knew where to find me. Mara blinked. A brother. He had never mentioned a brother. There's more, Caleb continued, staring at the paper like it might bite. He left me his land. His home. His son. Mara's heart stopped. His son? Caleb looked up. His eyes were storm clouds. He had a boy. 8 years old. The letter says I'm named his guardian. They expect me to come take him within the month. Thunder shook the house again, as if the sky reacted to his words. Mara pressed a hand to her chest. Caleb. I'm sorry. He laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. I can't raise another child. I couldn't protect my own. How am I supposed to? How do I try again? Caleb's voice broke. It was the first time Mara had heard it crack. No one says you have to do it alone, she said quietly. Lightning flashed. Rain slammed against the windows. The storm was here. Caleb pushed away from the table. I need air, he muttered, grabbing his coat. He stepped outside before Mara could stop him. The rain swallowed him instantly, soaking his coat, plastering his hair to his forehead. He didn't flinch. Storms couldn't scare a man already drowning. Mara wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and followed, staying on the porch. "You can't outrun this!" she called over the storm. "The past, the pain, whatever this letter means, you can't hide from it." Caleb stood in the yard, rain pouring down him like the sky was trying to wash him clean. "I'm not hiding," he shouted back. I don't know how to be anything but broken." Mara's breath shook. "Then be broken. But be broken trying. Not broken waiting to die in that house." The words hit him like stones. Hard. True. A sudden pain shot through Mara's stomach. Sharp. Burning. She gasped, knees buckling. She grabbed the porch railing to stay upright. Caleb's head snapped around. "Mara?" She pressed a hand to her belly. "It's too early," she whispered, panic in her eyes. "Something's wrong." Another contraction hit, harder. She cried out. Caleb sprinted toward her, slipping in the mud, catching her before she fell. "Hold on," he said, voice trembling. "I've got you." The wind roared like a freight train. Rain hammered the earth. Caleb lifted her, carried her inside, laid her on the couch. Her breaths came fast and shallow. "I'll get the doctor," he said, already reaching for his coat again. "No!" Mara gasped. "Storm, roads, too dangerous." Caleb froze. The storm howled outside, a beast blocking every path. He knelt beside her, hands shaking. "Then tell me what to do. I won't let anything happen. Not again." Mara gripped his sleeve. Her voice was barely a breath. "We survive. Together." Outside, lightning split the sky open. Inside, Caleb held her hand like a lifeline. And somewhere in the middle of the storm, something inside him shifted. The fear didn't disappear, but it moved. Made room for something else. Not hope. Not yet. But the beginning of it. Morning came like a bruise, dark purple clouds hanging low, the air heavy with cold. The storm had passed, but it had left everything trembling. Water pooled in the yard, the fields were slick with mud, and branches lay scattered like broken bones. Inside the ranch, Mara rested on the sofa, wrapped in blankets. The pains from last night had eased, but they left her pale and shaken. Caleb stayed close, pacing like a caged animal, checking the fire, checking the windows, checking her. "You need a doctor as soon as the road's clear," he said for the 5th time. Mara nodded, but her eyes were distant. Fear clung to her like a shadow. "I'll be okay. The baby just got scared, maybe." "Babies don't get scared," Caleb muttered, but not unkindly. "They warn us." Mara tried to smile, but it slipped. She looked toward the window. The world outside seemed too big, too loud, too ready to swallow her whole. Caleb forced himself to breathe. He needed to be steady. Mara needed steady. He sat at the table and stared again at the letter about his nephew. It lay open now, a doorway to a future he didn't know how to walk into. Mara watched him. "You're thinking too loudly," she whispered. He blinked. "Didn't know thinking made noise." "It does," she said. "When it hurts." Caleb looked away, jaw tight. He didn't know how to answer that. The room fell into a tense quiet. Then footsteps crunched on the wet porch. Slow. Deliberate. Caleb's spine straightened. Dusty neighed outside, unsettled. Caleb moved to the window, hand hovering near the shotgun mounted on the wall, not grabbing it, just close. Ready. A shadow appeared on the porch. Then a knock. 3 sharp hits that rattled the boards. Mara stiffened. Her breath hitched. "No," she whispered. "It can't be." Caleb opened the door. Mara's mother stood there. She looked smaller than before, raincoat clinging to her frame, hair plastered to her face, eyes wild like a cornered animal. But there was no gentleness in her. Only hunger, raw, desperate hunger. "You," she said, pointing a shaky finger at Caleb, "took something from me." Caleb's voice was low, steady. "I stopped you from hurting someone." Mara's mother scoffed, spitting on the porch. That girl is my responsibility. No, Mara said, voice breaking as she pulled herself up from the couch. I stopped being your responsibility the day you tried to sell me. Her mother's eyes flashed with something ugly. Not guilt. Not shame. Anger. You think this rancher cares about you? She hissed. You think he won't throw you out when the burden gets too heavy? Men always leave. They always do. Caleb flinched, just slightly, like a memory punched him in the ribs. Mara shook her head. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. But he never hurt me. You did. Her mother stepped forward, mud dripping from her boots. Caleb blocked the doorway with his body, tall and unmoving. You need to leave, Caleb said. And if I don't? She challenged. Caleb didn't reach for the gun. He didn't raise his fists. He just stood like a wall that would not crumble. Then the sheriff will be here 5 minutes after I whistle for him. You remember how fast he came last time? Fear flashed in the woman's eyes, but only for a second. She leaned closer, voice lowering. That baby will ruin her, she whispered. Just like she ruined me. Mara gasped like the words were hands around her throat. Caleb's voice hardened. You need to leave. Now. Her mother looked at him, then at Mara, her daughter, her victim, her mirror, and something changed. Not softened. Just shifted. Like she saw, maybe for the first time, that there was no place for her here. She stepped back. Mud sucking at her boots. I hope the world eats you both. She spat. Then she turned, climbed into a battered truck, and drove off into the wet horizon. Silence hit like a wave. Mara sank onto the couch, shaking. Caleb closed the door, leaned his forehead against it. His breath came in slow, painful pulls. She'll come back, Mara whispered. People like her always come back. Caleb turned, eyes dark but steady. Then she'll find me here. And I won't let her through that door again. Mara looked up at him, and something raw passed between them. Not romance, not comfort. Recognition. Of pain. Of survival. Of choosing to keep breathing. I don't want her to own my story anymore, Mara said, voice soft but fierce. I want a different ending. Caleb nodded. So do I. Lightning flickered far away, faint now, leaving only light rain to tap gently against the windows. The storm was weakening. Inside, another storm was learning how to rest. Mara placed a hand over her stomach. The baby kicked, gentle this time. Like a reply. Caleb watched. His heart thudded with fear and something that tasted almost like courage. They were not safe yet. But they were not alone. Days passed after Mara's mother left. The ranch felt different, like the walls finally exhaled. Caleb fixed fences, repaired the barn door, and cleared storm debris from the yard. The work was tiring, but it kept his hands busy and his mind from drowning. Mara spent most days resting, helping where she could. She swept the kitchen, folded blankets, and sometimes sat on the porch wrapped in Caleb's old coat, staring at the horizon like she was learning how to believe in distance rather than fear it. One morning, while Caleb repaired a fence post, Mara joined him outside. You're making this place look alive again, she said. He set the hammer down, wiped his brow. Maybe I am. Mara hesitated. Do you think you'll go after your nephew? Caleb looked toward the horizon. I don't know. I'm scared. To try again. To fail again. Mara nodded. Trying is still living. You told me once that waiting to die isn't the same as living. Caleb blinked, surprised. He didn't remember saying that. But maybe he had. Pain made people say honest things. Before he could answer, Mara gasped. Her hand gripped his arm. Her knees weakened. Caleb's heart jumped. Mara? It's time, she whispered. I think it's happening. Her face tightened, but she didn't scream. She just breathed, sharp and shaking. Caleb didn't hesitate. He helped her inside, supporting her like she might disappear if he let go. He laid her on the bed and grabbed his coat. I'll ride for the doctor. No, Mara said through clenched teeth. The last storm washed out the bridge. You'll waste time, Caleb. Please. Stay. I don't want to do this alone. He froze at the doorway. Alone. His wife had died begging him not to leave her side. And he had left, to fetch help. When he returned, it was too late. His chest clenched. Mara, I can't. What if? You're not leaving, she said. Just stay. Just be here. He wanted to run. His mind screamed not again. But he looked at Mara, pale and terrified and strong despite her fear, and something inside him shifted. He hung his coat back up. Tell me what to do, he said. Mara nodded, tears forming. Hold my hand. Don't let go. Time changed shape. Minutes stretched, then snapped. Pain came in waves. Caleb supported her, helped her breathe, brought water, wiped her forehead. He didn't look away. Not once. The wind outside rattled the windows, not violent, just alive. Like the prairie was watching, waiting. At one point Mara shook her head wildly. I can't, she sobbed. I can't. Caleb gripped her hand gently but firmly. Yes, you can. You already made it this far. I'm scared, she cried. So am I, he whispered. But we keep going. She nodded, breath shuddering. The hours crawled, each one heavier than the last. Caleb didn't think of his guilt, or the envelope, or the ranch. Everything shrank until there was only Mara's hand in his and the small, trembling hope of a heartbeat not yet heard. Then, as sunlight finally broke through the clouds, a sound filled the room. A cry. Small, fragile, but fierce in its existence. Mara collapsed back against the pillows, tears streaming down her cheeks. Not from pain this time. From something bigger. Caleb held the baby, wrapped carefully in a blanket, hands shaking like he was holding the world itself. He looked down at the tiny face. Eyes closed, skin soft as dawn. A miracle. Mara watched him, voice trembling. Is the baby okay? Caleb swallowed, nodding. Perfect. He placed the baby gently into her arms. Mara sobbed, holding her child like a shield and a treasure. Caleb stepped back, hands curling into fists to stop the shaking. Only then did he realize he was crying too. Silently. Like rain sliding down a window. Mara looked up. What are you thinking? Caleb wiped his face, breath unsteady. That may be. He stopped, searching for the right words. Maybe this ranch wasn't waiting for an ending. Maybe it was waiting for a beginning. Mara looked down at her child. What should I name them? Caleb hesitated. That's not for me to. I want to hear your idea, she said. Not demanding. Just inviting. He thought of his son. Of Clara. Of days full of laughter before the silence swallowed them. Hope, he said softly. Because that's what this is. Mara smiled, exhausted but bright. Hope, she whispered to the baby. My little hope. Outside, the clouds parted. Light poured through the window like a blessing, soft and golden. Caleb stood there, unsure if he deserved to be part of this moment, but wanting to be. For the first time in years, the ranch didn't feel haunted. It felt full.